Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. Today, I'm bringing you a totally spectacular gambit that you've probably never seen before. It's played with the double king's pawn. What does this mean, chess teacher? That you'll be able to play it in many games. Why? Because this right here is the most played in the history of chess. Look, it starts like this. We play d4, giving away this pawn. What do you mean, giving it away, chess teacher, if it's defended by the queen? Yes, but we're not going to capture it. Instead, we're going to play this move right here, f4. Notice that this is a very, very rare gambit. I've been playing it for 1 or 2 months, and it's given me results that will blow your mind. I'm going to explain, well, how to play it, and I'll also explain all the traps you can use in this gambit. So give this video a big thumbs up if you like videos like this. And now, let's get started with this awesome gambit. Look, where's the problem here for black? Now they have an extra pawn. The thing is, they'll probably try to defend it with their pieces. How? Well, for example, with knight to c6, or for example with the bishop to c5. They're two very natural moves. Why? Because they develop their pieces while defending their extra pawn. Let's assume they play, for example, knight to c6. Then we're going to keep putting strong pressure on this pawn, because that way we force our opponent to defend it with the other piece. If they defend with the bishop first, now when we attack it, they'll have to bring out the knight. And if they defend with the knight first, now when we attack it, they'll have to defend it with the bishop. What does this mean? That they're going to play these two pieces no matter what, and the order doesn't matter. Now, we're going to stop attacking this pawn because it was never our goal, okay? You must remember that. Our goal isn't to get this pawn back, but to pressure it a bit so our opponent defends it with their pieces. We're going to play bishop to d3. And why this bishop on d3 if it's blocked by the pawn? Well, you're going to see that next. Now, what would be a normal development move for the black pieces? For example, knight to f6, I'm taking. In fact, it's the one I've been played against the most, right? This traditional setup, bringing out the pieces, bringing out the knights, defending the pawn with the bishop, is what I've been played against the most in the games where I've used it. And notice that here we're going to castle. Why? Because they're going to castle too, and here they've practically lost the game already. How about that? Well, yes, here you have to keep the following in mind. Notice that we have two pawns very well positioned thanks to the fact that we've diverted this black pawn, a very important pawn. We've given away a pawn, but what they don't know is that they're worse off than we are, because this pawn bothers them a lot. And how are we going to continue? Well, now by advancing this pawn, moving our pawns, which have now become mobile because we don't have an enemy barrier, attacking this knight, which is the best defender of the castled king, and at the same time opening up our bishop, which is strategically slipped in to threaten the opponent's castled king. This knight has to go. But before we go on, let me tell you something quick that I'm sure you'll be interested in. I'm putting together a 30-day chess challenge, something that's taken me a lot of time and work and will be out in a few days. The idea is that in just 1 month, you can train with me clearly, day by day, and see how your level really goes up. But I'll tell you one thing, since I'm only going to open a few limited spots, okay? Because I don't want everyone to join. I just want limited spots. I want those of you who really follow me here and want to improve your chess level to have priority. That's why I've done something. I'm leaving a link below in the description or in my profile link, wherever you want, to my page where I've put a section for you to enter your email. And that way, what I'm going to do is notify you on the day that I open up the spots. It's only a few days away. I can't tell you exactly the specific day that I'm going to launch the limited spots. This way, I'm going to give you priority so you can access the challenge before anyone else. So if you're interested, don't hesitate. This knight has to go, and once it's gone, our Greek gift sacrifice will come. If you don't know what the Greek gift sacrifice is, it's bishop takes h7, an attraction sacrifice because we're going to attract the king. We give away the bishop, that's true, but now we come in with all our pieces. We come in with the knight giving check, and notice that the king doesn't have any pieces to protect him. He can try to escape, but now we come in with the queen, and checkmate will be inevitable. Notice that there's only one way to avoid this checkmate, and that's by giving the king some breathing room by moving the rook. And this, you have to remember this, important, If they try to escape with the rook, you don't have to enter through here, but you have to capture the f7 pawn. Why? To drive the king over here, give check again, and now, look, check, and when he moves, we come in to give check, and when he moves, we take the pawn with checkmate. Now the king can no longer escape. Checkmate. This second variation is even better and more fun. Normally they defend this pawn, right? Well, we're gonna play knight to f3, but what happens if they don't play bishop to c5? Because, chess teacher, they might play bishop to c5, which is natural, but they could also play this check here. It's not a very common move. They give check, this pawn is covering the f3 square. C3. It's a very natural move to give this check. How should I continue? Well, we're gonna play c3. Obviously, giving up the pawn is no big deal, because we want to develop the knight, okay? Once this knight is developed, we're doing great, and this bishop has nothing left to do. And in some cases, we can play bishop to d2, jump with the knight through here, attack here, come to attack some point around here. That's why many players, and I'm speaking from experience because I've tried it, exchange this bishop for this knight and leave us with this isolated pawn here. You already know that an isolated pawn is a tactical motif, but it's no big deal. Let's continue this way. You know that if they play knight f6 here, it's trouble for them, because we always have this advance that's going to really annoy our opponent, and also take away the best defender of the castled king. That's why I've found that most of the time, they play d6 against me. When they play d6, what should we do? Well, we're going to keep going as usual. This is where it's important to understand the concept and not just memorize the moves. We keep going. Bishop d3. Our opponent has played d6 now. They might play knight f6, but we're going to castle. It's absolutely fine. Notice that if they castle, they're in the same spot again. We advance, and no matter how much they trade, we can trade. This knight leaves, Greek gift sacrifice, and we're back to the same thing. That's why the opponent can't castle. If they castle, e5. If they don't castle, for example, developing a bishop while pinning us, we don't care. Why? Because our opponent stays with the king in the center. The great thing about this awesome gambit is, if they castle, bad. If they stay with the king in the center, even worse, because we're going to punish that too. e5, let's open up the position. The king is in the center, so we absolutely have to punish him. Here, there are several options. Either move the knight or capture with the pawn. Obviously, it seems much better to capture with the pawn. We're going to recapture with this pawn here, since the knight can't move for now. So this knight has to move. Where can it go? Well, the most natural move, obviously, is knight d5. And let's take a look at the position for a moment. Right now, it looks like a very even position where our opponent is up a pawn, but we have totally impressive pressure. Why? Look, bishop c4. We're pressing the knight with the bishop and the queen. And not only that, but when it moves, it doesn't matter if they attack the bishop, because now we're pressing this point with the rook and the bishop. And the sacrifice would come anyway. Boom, another bombshell. This bishop is the sacrificing bishop in this gambit. Why can we sacrifice the bishop here? Because now we can give this double check with the knight, and not just with the knight, but also with the rook. When there's a double check, they're forced to move the king. And now, when they try to hide, it doesn't matter what they try to do, because we're gonna win. Can we take this bishop? Yes, but all we'd be doing is winning back the piece we're down. Can we give this check over here? Well, it would be an interesting move, yes, but definitely not the best. The good move here is super surprising, and you're going to be amazed. You're going to give me a like just for this move. Watch out, okay? If you like chess, this is going to give you goosebumps. Rook f8, check, giving away the rook. It doesn't matter if they take it with the king or if they take it with the queen. Watch closely. Let's start by seeing what happens if they take it with the queen. Checkmate is inevitable. Queen b3, check. And now, no matter how much they can block with the knight here, with the knight there, with the bishop here, with the queen there, whatever move they make, we're going to capture it with checkmate. Look at this, okay? This queen and this knight make the ultimate duo to deliver checkmate, meaning if they take this rook with the queen, we deliver checkmate with queen b3. But what happens, chess teacher, if they take the rook with the king? Don't give me that. They're safe here, right? Well, no. Why? Because queen f1 is coming, and we'll deliver checkmate on the next move. If they block here, we take the queen. If they block here, we take it, and everything stays the same. And when they move the king, which they'll have to do at some point or another, if they go here, checkmate. And if they go, it doesn't matter. Even over here, it would also be checkmate. I warned you that this gambit was dangerous. And pay attention because it's not over yet. I'm sure some of you who are very smart, right? Some of you have wondered what happens if, when we play e5, they capture here, we trade, and now they exploit the pin and take this pawn here. Notice that this pawn can be taken. Why? Because now this knight can't recapture thanks to the bishop's pin. Well, here I present the tactical concept of the counter pin. You pin me, I pin you. I'm moving out of your pin and also pinning your knight. This wins the game. If they take this pawn, they're going to lose the game on the spot. And let's see why. I'm going to explain it to you. Here, no matter what happens, we're going to take this knight. Look, here the best move for the black pieces is to capture this bishop that's hanging. Now, momentarily, the white pieces have an extra bishop and 2 extra pawns. But what are we going to do now? Well, first of all, we're going to capture this knight. Oh, with the queen or the knight? With the knight. Pay attention, because many said with the queen. Attacking the queen and bishop, setting up a discovered attack. And we've also won back the piece. What's the only move here that can save the black pieces? Well, the only one that seems to save them is coming here with the queen. Why? Because that way, if we trade, they have this one here and they have time to move the bishop. However, here, all we simply have to do is, well, capture this bishop right here. Why, if they let us capture the queen? Well, when they capture our queen, remember the intermediate move. First, we capture this knight. Why? Because we capture with check, we double these pawns, and now we do win back the queen, and with check too. You have to move the king, right? Wherever. Well, so here we're left with an extra piece and a completely winning endgame. A move I've run into a lot playing this gambit is them trying to defend this pawn with c5. Is this a good move? It's not a good move. Stockfish says it is, but I'll show you it's easy to play against c5. Chess teacher, how do I punish this before I lose? Relax. Damn, I just punched it so hard. That really hurt. Anyway, now I'm going to explain it to you. Look, first of all, they've weakened. Ouch, my fist really hurts. Leave a like because I have completely wrecked my fist for you guys here. Come on. They've weakened this diagonal that we'll be able to exploit with our bishop. This is positive. Remember what I told you? Our goal wasn't to win back this pawn, so we don't care if they defend it. We'll just keep going. Remember the ideas. Knight to f3, right? Not attacking here, just developing the knight calmly. They can continue with their knight, for example, knight to c6. You know, if they play knight f6, they're exposed to e5, so knight c6 makes more sense. And that's why now we have to decide where to move our bishop. Here, where we've been moving it all along, or here. Well, in this case, we're going to move it here, to c4. Why? Because of the weakness these two pawns have created. Notice it'll never be easy to go for this spot, because we can capture very easily. That's why they can't defend this diagonal. And this bishop on c4 is very strong, hitting the f7 spot, the weakest point in the position. Why? Because it's the only spot defended only by the king. So how can the opponents continue here? Well, the most common move by far is playing d6 to protect against this e5 advance. You already know that if they play knight f6, we have this advance. I keep repeating it because you won't remember it later in your games. That's why they play d6. We continue with castling. If you've been paying attention to the video, you knew we'd castle kingside, right? Perfect. And now, look, if they play knight f6 here, you could punish it in 2 different ways. The first one, e5. I'm sure you thought of it. It could be punished like that. It could even be punished using the fried liver attack with knight g5. We attack with the king, we attack with the knight and bishop on f7, and it can't be stopped because of our pawn advance. So if knight f6 is bad, they might try other types of moves. For example, amateurs love to pin this knight, and you know that's a mistake. I'm sure you've already found how to punish it because we've talked about it in many videos. If you're loyal followers of the channel, you'll know that bishop takes f7, this sacrifice would win this bishop. Why? Because when they capture, all we have to do is give this discovered check. Why? Because on the next move, we're going to capture this bishop with the queen. Here, many times in online games, they've tried to be too clever and thought, I'm going to capture your queen, so first I'll sacrifice mine by taking this knight. And this is a calculation error. Why? Because simply by capturing the queen, they can't capture ours, because we're giving check. And then they have to move the king, and we capture this bishop. And look, we have an extra queen and a totally winning position where our opponent won't be able to do anything. Pay attention, e4, e5, d4, and now we play f4, the gambit we're looking at in this class. Now they defend the pawn, you remember, right? We're gonna keep putting pressure on it. With ideas of taking it? No, just putting pressure to force their pieces to defend this pawn that we don't want to take at all. Bishop to d3. Remember now, doesn't go to c4, but to d3. And here, one of the main ideas for the black pieces we saw was knight f6, which lost on the spot, right? Because we'd castling, and the Greek gift sacrifice and all that, right? d6 is much more effective for the black pieces. But watch out, we'll keep going the same way. Castling. Look, our opponent delays playing knight f6. They don't want to do it. For example, they come here to pin this knight, but now with much more success than before, because look, we don't have the sacrifice on f7 now because our bishop is on d3. That's why this bishop is actually good here now, because we don't have the sacrifice. Well, here we have to understand the position, and the move you're going to make in this case is knight from b to d2 to support this knight here. Why? Because now, no matter what they play, for example, knight f6, we're not going to advance, but instead, what we'll do is play h3. Why? Because if your opponent tries to escape, we're going to capture the bishop. Look, it has nowhere to go. That's why 90% of the time here, instead of pulling the bishop back, they capture the knight to not lose any time. And here, it's important. Remember, that's why we brought the knight here, to capture with this knight and replace the knight on f3. Now look, black doesn't want to stay in the center, because otherwise the king would be exposed, so they castle. But what happens? Even though the position has changed from the previous one, the exact same thing would happen. Do you remember or not? Come on, think with me. e5, very good. And now, no matter how much they capture, we're going to recapture and attack this knight here. Where can this knight go? The most natural move is knight d5. Wherever it goes, they lose. Why? Because we have the Greek gift sacrifice again. Bishop takes h7, king takes, and now we come in with this check. It's true they're not forced to go back, but look, for example, if they go to h6, they'd lose the game with knight takes f7, a discovered check with the bishop and a check with the knight. They'll have to move the king and they'd lose the queen. That's why they can't come here. If they come forward here, well, there are two moves that win the game. Queen d3, check, would win the game, because now it would practically force the king to come here, and the sacrifice would come again. And the other one that wins too is queen g4, because it sets up a discovered attack, and look, there's no way to prevent this king from ending up in checkmate. And remember that if the king goes back, we'd come in with queen h5 to deliver this brutal checkmate. Remember that if they move the rook, we'll capture here, and if not, we'll give mate here. For example, if they give a discovered check, which is the only thing they can do, we just move the king to a spot where they can't give us any more checks, and whatever they do next, we'd come in to deliver this brutal checkmate. Now, I'm going to show you one final detail you should know if you want to play this gambit. What's so great about this gambit here? Well, your attack plans are very, very similar in all lines, and you'll know them, while I'm sure your opponent won't, because this gambit is very rare. And that's why you're going to win a lot of games. But here, for example, if they play naturally, bishop to d3, you know how this works, d6 to prevent e5, very natural too, instead of playing knight to f6, very good, we castle and your opponent keeps playing normally, but they haven't castled yet. Notice that here, unlike when this pawn was here and your opponent was castled, the move was very easy. But here, playing e5 seems a bit premature. So what do we want? For our opponent to castle. How can we do that? Well, for example, with this waiting move, with this one here, h3 would be very interesting moves, but there's one move that will make your opponent castle instantly. And I've proven it because I played several games, and with this move, they've castled against me in all of them. Queen to g1. First, because we put a lot of pressure on this king, and second, because the e5 advance is totally brutal. We'd advance to e5, and after the exchanges, we'd be pinning all of this right here. They couldn't recapture. This knight would be under attack. The pressure is at its peak. That's why they castle. And now, what's changed? Well, the queen has simply switched sides, but that's okay. e5, pawn takes, pawn takes. This knight has to move, And now, simply the Greek gift sacrifice. They have to capture, check with the knight, and when they move, instead of entering through here, we enter through here. And you'll say, chess teacher, but you told me that when the rook moves, I should capture the f7 pawn, and now I can't. It's fine because thanks to not having the f pawn, oops, sorry, we give check here, and when he moves, we deliver checkmate with the rook. That's why the gambit is still totally effective. I hope you loved this video. If you loved it, please leave a like, comment, whatever you want, what you'd like to see, whether you like this video or not. Thank you all so much for the support. I love recording, as always, and I'll see you in the next video, friends. Goodbye.